All right, Haley. Haley, I don't know real well, but we have talked a few times, and I know that Haley is very excited about sharing her testimony.
Yes.
So, all the way from what part of Michigan?
I'm from around the Grand Rapids. From around Grand Rapids,
Okay.
Michigan. Yep.
So you've been here all week and um, been very excited sharing your story here and there, bits and pieces.
Yeah.
So we're looking forward to the whole story.
Okay. Excellent. My name is Haley. Um, Haley Joseph. My maiden name is Miller, and the Miller part is why I'm here today. I really came so that I could get up here and say thank you. Especially to Ray for his story. I have had, I've gone through quite a bit, yeah, but the one piece of the puzzle that I have spent the most money on to try to get help for, that I have talked my poor friends' ears off, that people have been most confused by, is the piece of my story where I feel completely rejected by my family. And it wasn't until I heard your story that pieces of my story came together, and I just wanted to say thank you. It's amazing when those pieces start to make sense for the very first time. On my way here, I was thinking about how I grew up in an evangelical Mennonite background from Northwest Ohio, from the cornfields. I don't know if anybody's heard of Souder Woodworking, but I worked there. My dad designed the buildings. I was a waitress at the barn restaurant wearing the homemade dresses with the bonnet and the white tennis shoes. But my upbringing was a little confusing because while my father grew up evangelical Mennonite and Mennonite, he married my mom, who was German, that was filled with polka parties, drinking, and all of that. So I just never really quite knew, like, what am I? Where are these roots? And so I was kind of on a quest to figure all of that out. So I did the only respectable thing, and I bought chickens. I got chickens, and I thought, well, I'm a miller. I was a miller. So I should also get a grain mill. So I started grinding my own flour. We were drinking raw milk. I, of course, had one home birth. I should mention, I am here. My family is all listening, and I came with all of their blessing before the story kind of unfolds. My husband and my 4 kids are at home watching, and they have been sending me messages. Mom, you've got this. It's going to be good. I'm praying for you. Mom, you can do this. Oh, I'm so nervous. Please. But they've been supporting me, and so I come with their blessing. And so, this kind of feels like about as close to home as I might get for a while. And as I was driving here, I couldn't help but think of the way part of my story kind of did start on the path from the northwestern Ohio part into Cleveland, as my grandpa, Louis Miller, was driven for surgery at Cleveland Clinic in a hearse to have half of his lung removed, or one of his lungs removed. They had faith to put him in a hearse so that he could come back in the right vehicle, only for him to live and fall in love with his nurse, my grandma Betty, who has red hair, and she was a Baptist girl. So the two of them got married, and it is also for them and their heritage of faith that I also share this story as a way to honor those who have gone before me. So I would just like to say a prayer. And Jesus, thank you so much for who you are and for this opportunity. I pray that you will calm the little storm that's rising up in me, and that you will just still my blood pressure. Just allow what's from you to stick, and everything that's not just to fall away. Pray these things in your name. So I have been a believer for since the age of 10, so for 36 years. I came to know Jesus at church camp, and but from there, it was when I was at the age of 16. I mean, he's been chasing me my whole life. When I was at the age of 16, I went on a mission trip, and I was so lonely because I was away from my family, and I felt Jesus' hand in mine. And I've just had a love story with him. Studied at Cedarville. I thought I would probably go into missions. That would have been the ideal story for me to say. It's the story I wanted to be up here telling you about. I had studied in Israel and fell in love with the idea of working in an orphanage. When I was in Jerusalem, I volunteered at an orphanage in Bethlehem, and I thought, oh, this is it. Like, God is calling me, and I will go to Africa. That I will go. Like, I wanted to get very far away from my parents, but I also felt like it would be where God was leading me, because I just loved to travel. But that's not quite what happened. I ended up getting married to my husband, Seth. We met at Cedarville. And from there, we did try to go to the mission field, but they said that we weren't good candidates because we had college debt. And that's kind of how it works, I think, sometimes. But what brings me here is the part of my story that happened in 2014. So just rest assured, I am about 11 years out here from most of this story. We're 11 years. So this is not fresh. I've been able to share parts of this story. My husband shares parts of his story with others, and we share it as a couple. Okay? So I just want to kind of paint this picture first. In January 2014, I had a crazy dream. I had a dream about 2 rainbows, and I called the only person who I thought was crazy enough to listen. And I was like, listen, I have had this weird dream about 2 rainbows, and do you know if this could mean anything? And she's like, well, I don't know. Rainbows come after a storm. And I thought, my life is a storm. What on earth how could this get really any worse? Those are dangerous words to say. So I kind of let it pass. Just like the young lady who shared her story yesterday, I just kind of let those words pass until February 17th, 2014. My husband and I were watching the Olympics, and all of a sudden, there had been a storm that day, through a snowstorm, 10 inches of snow, and all of this, we're sitting in our living room, which is attached to our garage, and everything started to shake. The ceiling was shaking, dust was falling off. Our wood-burning stove was at close to 700 degrees. And we ran out of that room into our kitchen. Our dog ran back into the living room, so we had to run and get the dog, only for us to discover that the roof on our garage collapsed. We fled for what we felt like was our lives. So we grabbed the children at that hour of night and got into our only vehicle that we had now, because the garage had collapsed on top of the only vehicle with car seats. At the time, our children were 8, 7, 6, and 4. We had 4 kids in 4 years, just over 4 years. then ran to help we ran to gathered up all of those essential items, like my daughter's American Girl doll, all of our birth certificates, everything. My training as a social worker had lent itself to this extreme hypervigilance. So I was grabbing social security cards and all the things, family photo albums and wedding photos and anything, because I didn't know if our whole house would collapse. So we went into a hotel. Whoa, time is going fast. We were in a hotel. I remembered the dream. I looked it up in when the Noah and the flood story, and that's when I realized that Noah got in the boat on the second month of the year on the 17th day of the month, the same day our roof collapsed. So I started to say to people who thought I was all nuts, I bet you we're gonna get out of this boat on the same day Noah got out of the boat. It was when we're gonna get back in our house. And that did end up coming to pass. We entered our house on the same day that Noah was recorded to get off of the boat. So in that time, things were really rough. I was not okay. I was telling everyone I was not okay. I had lost everything I had known. I had unknowingly wrapped up my identity in what it would be like, or my role as a homeschooling mom, a homesteader, a housewife, all of the things I had identity in. I would have said my identity was in Jesus, but it clearly wasn't, because it was all taken from me. In August of that year, so that was in February, we were still homeless. We began fighting with the insurance company. The wars were kind of beginning to brew, but things were really hard in my home. I started to seek help from a prayer minister, started praying through breaking off different family curses that we realized were in our family. We started praying through those things, and I prayed. I had a really different ideas about how Jesus worked. And I had known that there was something wrong with my husband and I's marriage, and I felt like he was keeping secrets from me. But every time I asked him, he would lie. If I asked him if he's ever had an affair, he would lie to me. But that one night, I was praying, and I just said, we were laying in bed together one night, and I said, Jesus, I am so sorry. I am so sorry that I believed you would tell me what my husband had done. Somehow I believed that I would just be told, like Jesus would kind of tell me. But I no longer hold you responsible, Jesus, and I am so sorry for how I have gotten these things confused. I now place all of that responsibility on him. He is the one who can speak for himself, and I now place that on him. And I just turned to him and I said, what have you done? Have you ever? Tell me what you've done. And I felt this heat rise off of my body, and it rolled onto him, and he started half-truth confessions about how he had affairs. It sounded a little bit like Bill Clinton. Just little half-truths of horrible things. And oddly enough, we just was like, okay, fine. And we went back to sleep. Just lay in there, same bed. I mean, we had no friendship. There was nothing there. I despised this man, and I didn't know why, but I just didn't trust him. And when we got married, he said that he wanted to have specific people stand up with him because he wanted those people to hold him accountable. And so he woke up that next morning, and I said, so are you going to call him? And he did. And those men then heard what he had told me, and they said, we do not believe it. We think he's done more. And the next day, he was confronted by 3 men. And then those men sent him back to our home so that the two of us could sort this out on our own, because they believed this was something we could handle on our own. It was awful. It turned into what looked like a domestic violence dispute between a couple. I was completely undone. I locked the doors and told the children to stay inside. Things were coming out of my mouth that I had never thought before, as if it was my native tongue. I was throwing things, I was threatening to hit him, and unfortunately, the children were there to watch through the windows. This caused them to be very scared of me, and I thought I was trying to be the only safe person in their life because I was trying to protect them. I kind of want to borrow this verse from Peter when he said, or from Paul, sorry. I love Peter. Paul said, "At my first defense, no one came to stand by me, but all deserted me. May it not be charged against them, but the Lord stood by me and strengthened me, so that through me the message might be fully proclaimed to all the Gentiles that might hear it. So I was rescued from the lion's mouth. The Lord rescued me from every evil deed to bring me safely into his heavenly kingdom. To him be the glory forever and ever. Amen." I was so traumatized. I was terrified. I ran to somebody's house. We fled under the cover of night, or in the morning. One time I was just terrified. I didn't know who this man was and how he could lie to me, because it did come out that he had had multiple affairs. At this time, I had been volunteering with the human trafficking organization, and I was really concerned about the plight of women and children. And so I did take a leap of faith, and I was like, whatever it costs, I don't care if my name goes through the mud, and I will do whatever I can to set women and everyone free, and I will only stand before women and God, knowing I've done everything I can. So I did call Homeland Security on him. I tried to get him arrested 2 times. I spoke with Lieutenant Officer Fiegel, and I wrote it down on a 3x5 card, and he said, "I have talked to many women in this situation, and I want you to know," because I said to him, I said, "Listen, I would have killed him myself. And I know my friends would be bringing me cookies and muffins in prison." And he said, I just want you to know, I think you're going to be okay." And I was like, I'm going to write this down. Like, I have it in my dresser still to this day with the date and time, because I did not believe I would ever be okay. But he had faith that I would be okay, and I trusted him. I do not recommend this. I just want to back up. I am not saying this because I recommend that this is what anyone does. Okay? This is not a prescription for what to do if you find these things out. Okay? I don't recommend telling Homeland Security that you're considering murdering someone. I don't recommend it. From there, I ran to the only place I knew, and I knew it would be awful. I ran to my parents' house. It was just torture, another form of torture. We lived there for 1 month. I told my parents, please do not tell anyone what has happened in our little community. I didn't want anyone to know. Of course, they sounded the alarm like I had just gotten engaged. They called all my aunts and uncles, everybody they knew. They told everybody so that I could go home and be welcome. My uncle told me, he said, Haley, I hope that, he said, I just want you to know that if I was Seth, I would come after you for custody of the children. I'd take those kids away from you. I knew that for a very long time that my parents were that I had always kind of felt that my mom wanted to take the children away from me. She would threaten grandparents' laws or just kind of bring up grandparent laws through casual conversation, even when we would spend quite a bit of time together. We would, this is going too fast. We would leave, so then I would go try to get away for a little bit, breathe. I had gone through a period of time where I vomited every day for 10 days. The anxiety was so bad. I had night terrors. I could not sleep. When a person is married to somebody who becomes a stranger in a blink of an eye, it is completely unsettling. It's called trauma. This felt like a lot of complex trauma with the loss of the house. I lost the house. I had lost everything. I had lost my husband. I felt like I had almost nothing more to lose. So I went thrift shopping, of course, and went to that little thrift store 2 towns away, and I walked in having a little conversation, kind of tried to feel like a normal person, and she asked, "Who are your parents?" Of course, I told her, so she leaned over and was like, "Oh, I am so sorry." Of course, she had already heard. I have no idea who this woman even is, but then I came back home, told my parents about it, and they told me that I probably was the one who told her. How, I have no idea. But that's kind of how it worked. From there, we moved 6 times that year. My husband we did what was called a full disclosure, where it was facilitated. We had invited other professionals to help share his story with me, where he made a confession. That was his testimony, or what his confession was backed up by a polygraph. He has gone on to get 18 polygraphs over the course of this 11 years to prove sobriety when lying is a native tongue. And you're living with somebody, for me, it just felt safer to always have that tested. So we had a full disclosure. He had shared that. There was a pastor present, another person via Zoom, and for the first time, I could sit across from him and actually feel like he was being honest for the first time in 12 years. I didn't know what that would do for me. I had absolutely no desire to stay married to this man. I thought that the worst case scenario would be for us to be married for 40 years and to be helping other couples. I was like, listen, if that's what you want to do, you want to champion marriage, you do it. But I want to live. Because that marriage felt like it was killing me. This has gone way too fast. When I rehearsed this story, it took me 5 minutes. But I need to get to the good stuff. When we were separated, I went to a church, and we were going through the different aspects of craftsmanship that are written in Exodus. And the pastor had asked if anybody would like to pray for a blessing over them. And I was like, listen. He's like, well, would you like to pray over what gift of craftsmanship might you want to receive from the Lord that's written in Exodus with all the different kinds of craftsmanship? And I was like, listen, I am a single mom of 4. I need it all. So he anointed me with oil, with an elder. And God began to unleash craftsmanship and artistry through my fingers. I could feel like lethargy leaving my hands. And so we did go back into our home. Our house was lost in foreclosure due to a 4-year lawsuit. They upped our insurance rates to $1,700 a month so that we could no longer afford to pay that plus our mortgage. Okay? It was covered under a tarp for 8 years. This morning I woke up in a storm, and my body is slowly able to hear a storm without feeling terrified. I felt like I was living in a sailboat for 8 years. It was awful. We would then, our house still was uninsurable. So, because the siding, when they removed the roof of the house, or for the roof of the garage, they did not cut it off, okay? The construction company ripped the roof off our house, and that compromised the structure throughout the entire home. So this no longer became an issue of the garage, this became an issue of the entire house. And that's what led to the lawsuit. I am legally bound to tell you that this was mutually beneficial for both parties, okay? One day I had the faith to pray in 2023 of June that I just knew it. I knew that God could totally provide for us, that he could, with one word, he could provide enough money so that our house could be completely recited. Our credit was completely shot. So we were unable to get a loan. We had to pay every single thing out of pocket for all of our repairs. And I believed that God could totally give us repair a house if he just said the word. And so I prayed, I've got it all written out, and 1 month after that, my husband gets a call from the pastor of all the places. And he gets a call from the pastor, and he's like, I've got something to tell you. And I was like, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. And my husband was all geeked out about it. And I was like, listen, honey, just like calm down. This is not going to be that exciting. This is the church we're talking about. Like, don't get your hopes up too high. There was someone who was an anonymous donor, one person or a party of people that donated enough money so that our house could be completely brought to insurable in February last year. So at the 10th year of our house being uninsurable, it was brought to complete restoration. Since then, my husband has continued to be in recovery. He works with men with sexual addiction issues and helps them. I have had the honor and privilege to hear women's stories that are hauntingly similar to mine. We as a couple have been able to sit with couples and women that are in crisis. And God is it feels like very slowly resurrecting our marriage from the dead. I think often about resurrection from the dead and what that must be like. Death is very stinky. And it takes I feel like it just takes a long time for all of those cells just to be put back together again or being made new. The process of being made new has been much longer than I would have ever wanted it to take. As part of being made new, for about 3 years, I could hardly look at myself in the mirror. After everything had come out, I remember the one day that I said maybe only a couple times, I hate my life. That felt like victory. For about 3 years, I said, I hate my life under my breath. I don't know how many times. And of course, this has absolutely nothing to do with my children, who are absolutely beautiful, marvelous, kind, and amazing. This has to do with everything else but them. And yeah, that felt like victory that one day. But God has been making me new. This story has cost more than I would have ever been willing to pay. The price for, the price and the cost of staying in this. It cost me everything. So it was really hard for me, and what was really hard was having his last name, because it felt like I was in bondage to this. So we legally changed our last name. God gave us a new name He laid that on my heart. He laid it on my husband's heart at the same time. And so God gave us the last name Joseph. We've gone through the legal channels to get it all done. Joseph means he will add. And we have been through a time of so much loss that it felt like he was adding to us. I had seen when we were separated how Jesus was given a Joseph at the beginning of his life, and he was given a Joseph at the end. And the Joseph at the end is who I call my spiritual father. Joseph of Arimathea, who took Jesus off the cross, who covered him in his nakedness, because no one seemed to be able to cover me in mine. And so our whole family has gone through a legal name change. The children and my husband all have kept the former last name, which was made up by his grandfather, who was a sex addict, to kind of, we think, hide things. And so we see this as a way of setting things right. So God is restoring things. He is making all things new. And if there's anyone here that would like prayer for their marriage, would like blessing over their craftsmanship, or just needs a hug and don't want to say anything, you can hunt me down. Thank you for allowing me to be here.
It was telling me, climb out of the boat, take a walk on the way, some places you'll never go, till you step out on faith. Don't fear the wind or the rain, Jesus called you, now go. Others might think you're insane, just climb out of the boat.